He put up a tweet saying that for the first time since this crisis began, he was more optimistic today than he was yesterday. I think that's the way a lot of people were feeling yesterday. And John Meacham, by the way, I have no doubt that there were people who spit up their Cheerios all across the table this morning when they heard Mika say that Donald Trump made being a parent easier yesterday. Something that I know that if you had a bingo sheet of things that you were going to predict Mika Brzezinski was going to say on the show, that would not be on the first 50 sheets printed, right?
No, it
but
wasn't.
It is interesting. No, it was not. But it's very interesting. We have, quite a few children between us, 87, 88, who still wanted to go out to restaurants, who still wanted to go out and do things every day, who every day made us say, no, you can't do that. No, you need to stay at home. No, we need to socially separate. No, I don't care if your friend's stupid parents are having parties at restaurants. You can't go. It's very interesting that after 3 years of political norms being shattered, we saw yesterday, when used correctly, the power of the bully pulpit. So when the President of the United States, whoever the President of the United States is, says no more than 10 people should be together, don't go to restaurants, don't go to bars, don't go on airplanes unless you have to, work from home, school, laid all of these things out, someone who had not been taking it seriously enough, a remarkable thing happened yesterday. When we went out to the grocery store, suddenly, you could tell everybody was taking it seriously. Our children seemed to understand. The community seemed to understand that this wasn't a battle between the right and the left. This wasn't a battle between the hysterical press and Republicans, that this was a serious matter. And I just sat there thinking, wait a second. After 3 years of shattered political norms, a president can still stand behind a podium and force everybody from Republican governors to our children to stop and listen and act accordingly.
Yeah. And there's something about the resilience of the American people and the American spirit and the American presidency. Maybe not the president, but the presidency. One of the great questions we've been facing, and this is not necessarily the time to delve into it, but one of the great questions we've been facing is we know that the presidency did not change Donald Trump. The question always has been, to what extent has Donald Trump changed the presidency? And all of that's interesting and academic, and you and I can bore people for the rest of the year on that. But here's a moment where the word crisis is from the Greek, is from Hippocrates, and crisis means moment of decision in the course of a disease in which a patient either lives or dies. That's why we use the word crisis so much, is it's supposed to be an inflection point, a turning point. And this is as genuine a crisis as possible. And there is a model of presidential leadership, and it's Franklin Roosevelt through the tumult of the 30s. It's John Kennedy saying that we have to be patient in tribulation, quoting St. Paul in the long twilight struggle of the Cold War. We need this kind of leadership. And one of the things that we have to focus on is Ohio, Georgia, Louisiana, I think I have those right, are not holding primaries today. And one of the things we have to pay enormous amount of attention to here is the ordinary unfolding of democracy. Lincoln didn't cancel 1864 in the midst of an armed rebellion. And so to me, the deeply scary thing about this is there's a health crisis, and yes, you're right about the causality of the health crisis and financial crisis, but there's going to be a significant fear as this economic fallout settles in. And I think that there's sort of 2 or 3 bounces to this, and it's going to require a consistent presidential voice. And I leave it to Americans who've paid attention the last 4 years to see whether they think they're confident they're going to receive that.
And that consistency could be really challenging from what we've seen in the past. You have to look at what's driving this president's behavior. And It could be very grave news, that is, and that's fine as long as he sticks to the tone. I'm watching the election process very closely.
Right, and I think a lot of people are. We're watching Ohio yesterday, where the governor of Ohio tried to cancel the elections. A judge said you can't do it. He ignored apparently the judge's orders. We're going to look at that a little more closely. But Mika, you know, again, if you are, and let's just getting out of this bubble that, of course, we do all live in. If you are someone with an elderly mother or father who understands that the coronavirus could be a death sentence, if you are the father, as I am, of a child with diabetes who is just more at risk than others, or a parent with a child with upper respiratory issues, any of these things, you're hoping the President of the United States leads. You're actually cheering on the President of the United States to get this right. Because, again, what's at stake for this country is something that we really haven't experienced in our lifetimes. We just haven't. The next 3, 4, 5 months are going to test this nation, and we are all in this together.
Yeah.
And we can only hope that our leaders act responsibly and help us get through this as we do our part too. Just like John said, this is more like Britain in World War II. And again, I'll say in closing, if you think we're being melodramatic, look at the report that sobered up the White House yesterday. And when you start talking about the possibility of 2 million deaths, when you start talking about the hospitals being overrun, even if we do everything right, and when you look at the fact that more people, if these projections ended up being correct, if we botch this, more people could die of this than died in World War I, II, Vietnam, and also, of course, in the Civil War, more American soldiers, more American troops, then you realize we all have to get this right.
So as Meacham mentioned, there were 4 primaries that were scheduled for today, but the state of Ohio defied a judge's order not to delay the election. Florida, Illinois, and Arizona will vote today as scheduled. Georgia and Louisiana have postponed their upcoming primaries as well, along with Kentucky. We'll be watching all of that. And still ahead on Morning Joe, how the outbreak is impacting those who Americans need the most, the nurses and healthcare workers on the front lines being exposed every day.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.